Hey guys, welcome to another 10-minute review. Feeling really good about this shot that I'm going to review for you guys today. It's by Yolak, and I think he has something really good on his hands when it comes to having a dynamic and a very cool shot with a cool idea behind it. But as always, there's things that need to be improved on in order to really squeeze the most entertainment out of the shot. So let's have a look at those next. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and play it a couple of times so you guys can see it, and then I'm going to give you my 2 cents. But before that, let me set up my timer right quick. Clock. Alright, so 10 minutes in the counter, and let's get started. Alright. Boom, boom, boom. Yeah. Cool action scene. I'm really digging the 4 arms character, or humanoid, I guess, that you've created here. So here's the thing. I'm going to start with the positive as always. So I like how you actually moving the camera dynamically. I like how you are thinking about your shots and the posing of your characters or people or creatures in this case. I'm really digging what you are doing when it comes to letting the posing read as the characters are hitting each other. Really cool. Nothing feels rushed, which is a good thing. It happens to a lot of new animators. If animations are rushed, there's no time to read the animations, there's no readability. So I think you did a really good job at making sure that your shots, your camera angles, and the posing is readable, which is really cool. But there's a few things that I think that you need to improve on in order to get this to really kind of like be super awesome. So the very first thing starts here in the beginning, which is basically how this shot starts. So I feel like this here, about 20 frames in, you can see here, he kind of holds that pose for quite a while. Now, you might be actually wanting to give that matrix effect of going like and then punching, but it really looks like the way he's set up right now that he's just holding this pose for no reason and then punching. Or perhaps what you want to do, and this is me assuming, definitely comment in our Discord on what you intended, perhaps show me some reference. But I think that maybe as a second guess, you might want to you wanted to kind of like have this slow motion of like wind up the punch and then punching, right? So if you wanted one of those two, you need to basically clarify the idea. I think going with the second one of actually kind of like winding down that punch and then, or winding up that punch and then punching, I think is going to be a much better idea. So having said that, if you do that and wind up that punch, then make sure that you have a bigger difference when you're posing, right? So make sure that you go from here to here instead of just keeping it around here all this time, because the movement is so little that it feels like it does nothing for all these 20 frames. And notice how the camera and the arm are moving at the same speed pretty much. See that? Which then makes it even more, or compounds that effect that he's just moving like this, and it just looks like he's a still pose. So that's number one. Number two, I think that this punch here, the initial punch, doesn't feel powerful enough, and it feels very much like the whole character is moving, and it just feels weak in the punch. So once again, if you haven't, I have a feeling that you probably took reference from somewhere and then you did the shot. If you do, and this bit perhaps was not there before, take a reference of yourself making that punch. But as you can see from my body, just this upper body, when you actually have a wind-up punch like this and then you punch, there's an overlap to the body, and I'm gonna do it with the right hand because I'm right-handed. So there's an overlap to the body that actually dictates what comes first, second, and third on the body as you are doing it. So in this case, if you are here and you are kind of like winding up the punch and then punching. There's a sense in, if you look at my upper body and my arms, you see that as you're doing this is one movement, and I'm actually moving my arm first and my body follows through, and then as I'm punching forward, like the movement of my arm, there's an anticipation to the movement of my arm, as you can see here, and then there's a movement forward, and then basically goes arm is leading, and then body is leading, and then the arm goes forward, and at some point here the arm is going to actually pull the body forward, right? As you actually are punching, especially if you miss, you actually go up past the point, and then the body just goes forward with the arm, right? So it's basically a dynamic between this kind of pulling the arm forward and then the arm pulling the body forward. So you need to sell that idea of overlap in the body in order to make sure that you have that really dynamic punch when you do it, right? So because it's the very beginning of the shot, it's super important for you to get that punch to feel super dynamic. The second thing that I think is, like, this guy here, he looks really interesting, right, with his arms and stuff, and he looks kind of creepy. Now, I like what you're doing with the body here when he actually goes miss. This is really, really cool, but maybe have the movement be a little bit more delayed, almost like the arm is going, and then just at the last minute, that's when he misses, to make sure that you get much more of that feeling that he's really going for it, but he's so fast, this is why he misses at the moment, because the punch feels so slow and that movement of dodging feels so slow, you can see it coming from a mile away, and as an audience it feels like you just like there for the ride, but not in an enjoyable way. So keep him there for a little longer instead of just getting that anticipation to read so early. So keep him still, and then right at the last minute, more or less, when he gets to about here, that's when he goes and moves right out of the way. The movement itself is really nice. Make sure you add more overlap on the arms. He has 4 arms, so 100%. If you were to do this, your arms 100% overlap, but because he has 4, give him much more of that, dynamic arms, so you really sell that viciousness of having multiple arms. So the in-between of a human and an octopus, perhaps, this is when things get creative. So try that, see how that feels. But I like what you're doing with the movement. It feels quite nice. Now, another thing that you need to do is about this hit here. Same thing, like it feels like it's very much like you can see it coming from a mile away right there. Like, this guy is basically the main problem of the shot right now, and is how he punches, right? You need to make sure that that overlap that we talked about in the beginning still reads here, and it reads well, right? So you can see it coming from a mile away. Even this guy, when he actually goes grab, it just feels like it's very just premeditated. So you want to remove some of that and basically leave that hand just like a little bit maybe low, and then as he's punching and winding up that punch, that's when that hand comes up and then stops. So that looks a bit more organic and a bit more like he did it right at the last minute, right? This part here, when he punches, right, not only do you have to better this pose because he feels very much like he's close on himself and feels kind of awkward, make sure that he has a strong pose when he punches, but most importantly, that punch, when he hits that hand, it needs to be like one frame. So he goes from here to around, when he gets to about here, is basically one frame, pop, and then he just leaves. And notice when you hit, like especially when you hit something and there is no grabbing, there's like one frame of hit, but then you kind of just bounce back, right? So this bounce back needs to happen on this hand as you go through, right? So same thing as this, but basically just goes like this. So there's a bit of a tug of war, almost like having that resistance there is super important. But yeah, if you manage to do that, it's going to look really good. Also, another thing, as the guy holds his fist, there needs to be a reaction on the body. So it's not just this and it happens here only. When you do it, make sure that the body of this creature here has some kind of an impact to it, right? Once again, if you're unsure how it is, grab a friend, make sure that you do this specific movement, and then analyze specifically the core of the character as he's moving, because you'll see a lot of stuff happening that you need to do. All of these arms are going to have to react to this punch and grabbing the punch, so you feel like the impact of that punch as well. And then let me see. Yeah, and then grabbing this hand is very close. You don't need such anticipation on the hand, on the other hand, because it's not like he's trying to punch him. At the moment he's struggling. The main character here, he's struggling with like trying to get this hand out, so you can actually grab it a little bit slower, so that's okay. Maybe try to get after they actually lock, make sure I try to get a little bit more of that immediate just grabbing straight away. At the moment it feels like they stay there for a while and there's no grab. And then I like what you're doing here with the anticipation right here. There's a lot of anticipation, but just make sure that this arm is kind of folding for longer, right? So it just goes from folding to unfolding as it goes through it, right? And then at the last minute, when he goes into the punch, he's here for maybe, I don't know, 3 frames. And then this punching mechanic, punching the more direct, having too much fun. That's it, that's the 10 minutes right there, but I'll leave you with this last one. Punching, the more direct you make it, the more of a straight line you make it, the more dynamic it feels. So the wind up can have an arc, as you can see here, there's an arc, but as soon as that arc is finished, then you punch, right? In reality, there's never like a 100% straight line, but in animation, in order to push things, you can actually make it a straight line, almost like an arrow, to make sure that that feels dynamic and it feels good. And then the ending, make sure that you have, for just 1 frame or 2 frames, you have a straight line to then bounce back into relaxation. That's it. I'll leave it there. But you have something really special here. Looks cool. Another thing that I would say is about the camera. Make sure you pay attention to the camera. Make sure that the camera is not so visible to the viewer, because at the moment it feels very much like you notice the camera moving. Make sure that the camera is invisible. The camera is just there to kind of like take in the action. So you're doing a good job, but I think there's a bit too much floatiness from time to time, which makes it a little bit too visible to the viewer, right? But keep going. Really cool job, Yolak, and that's it. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you guys want your animations reviewed, then make sure you join our Discord server. I'll have a link down below. I'll put some images here of the Discord server, how it looks and how much fun we have. We just introduced forums to the Discord server, and we are looking to actually get to that 1,000 people mark in our server, so we can talk some more, we can actually interact some more, have more fun. So lots of fun stuff happening. Join us. And also, before I go, shout out to my Patreon supporters. If you'd like to support me on Patreon, all the money goes back into this channel to make it better every single week. That's all I have for you guys. Stay well, stay safe. See you on the next one. Peace.